stunting. I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out.
Hello, Miami. Thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. And we are now on 305 Live. And again, it's Canes Talk, another but Canes Talk I'll be doing for a whole week, all right, as I told you guys in previous announcements. But I'm going to bring on two friends of mine, okay? And like I've mentioned in previous podcasts, I think these two gentlemen have the best and most creative names, okay, in the sports podcasting world. Starting first with my good friend of 30 plus years. You guys know him as Q, but he is my good friend, William Quintero, the host of the I Hate Football podcast. What up, Will? How's it going?
What's up, brother? How are you?
Good, man. Good, man. You left a lovely... I'm doing fine, man. I'm doing great. We had technical difficulties to start. StreamYard's been a little finicky lately, but I'm glad we're getting things going. But before I bring in our next guest, I wanted to say you left a lovely Peach State, which I also love to frequent every so often, and came down to the 305 to go on a cruise with your daughter, who has grown up. The last time I saw her, she was holding a muñeca.
Yeah, brother. Yeah,
in general, man.
She is most definitely an adult now. She's 23, which is crazy to say.
My God, we're old, bro.
Yeah, 23, bro. It sounds weird to say, and it's crazy because when we're out and about, people don't realize she's my daughter. They'll be like, "Oh, your girlfriend," or So I tell her she looks old and I look young. So.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you,
going, brother. We're gonna keep that going. Hopefully.
I showed my mom the photo you sent me, and my mom thought that was your wife.
I like it. I'll take it.
I go, Mom, no, that's his daughter. And she forgot you had a kid in general about 23 years ago. And I'm like, Mom, that's his daughter. She's like, and no ha cambiado, like the old Cuban thing. And no ha cambiado. And I go, no, he hasn't. I haven't. Like I told him on the air, man, I have aged. He hasn't. Okay.
Appreciate it, man. But like I said,
man, I got you, bro.
Hopefully keep that going as long as I can, bro. Keep it going as long as I can.
Bro, if you grow a beard, bro, I hope it's as gray as mine, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Man, work-wise, I can't do it, man.
Not even Macho Man could resist, bro. He had to eventually acknowledge he's had a gray beard, man, before he passed away.
I'm gonna try and keep it hidden, keep any gray hidden as long as I can do it.
Well, it is what it is, bro. Yeah, all right, my next guest is a good friend of the show and a good friend of the show, and he is the host of the very popular podcast, Cafecito con Kane, and of course a co-host as well on the Miami Flow Network with Flow himself, ladies and gentlemen, John. But you know him as Cafecito and Kane. What's up, John? How's it going?
What's up, gentlemen? I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. You have no gray at all.
No, I do. If you
you do, really?
You can see it. Yeah. I
really?
got a little gray.
Those two little hairs, bro.
Yeah. Own it, right? Gotta own it. Gotta own it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I own it, bro.
Work hard for those grades, man.
I earned these. That's how I look at it.
Exactly.
I about a few years ago, I tried the just for men with a touch of gray look, and so on, and I ended up over dyeing it, and never again, bro. I'm like, you know what? Forget it, dude. I'm going straight. I'm going straight. Straight gray, no matter what. I don't want to be like Dyebeard, Ryan Day over in Ohio State. That's for damn sure.
No, that's ridiculous.
So you had the shoe polish beard for a little bit?
No, I did not. I had a goatee back then, but it wasn't as gray because it was a few years ago. It had gray fuzz, but I had the hair. Like, my hair is like practically almost gray now. I've tried, even when I do my avatars, I still have the shade of gray. Now my hair is almost gray. Back then it was like, I would say 70% dark brown and 30% gray. And I tried it, keep the touch of gray, have just the gray on the sides. In general, no, man, my wife poured that thing on my head and it turned all like dark brown. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. So no, I never touched the beard. I refused to do that, but I did do the hair once and I never did it again. So I will never be Dyebeard. If you ask Benny from You Heard, that's his lovely nickname for Ryan Day. So
no, that looked terrible, man. That looked so bad.
No, it was bad. And it's really bad on his. He's got an oil spill on his face and hair. But anyways, guys, So both Canes fans here. A lot of talk about spring practice has been going on in general, and I've been hearing a lot of good things. I'm sure you guys are attuned to what's going on in practice, even though the reporters can only get about 30 minutes of coverage, and they just report on what they see. But we've heard a lot of progress coming, especially from the true freshmen as well. So I want to ask, starting first with Q, on offense, who have you heard as a standout, and who would you like to see, who are you excited about pretty much, and who you've heard stood out, and who are you excited to see this upcoming season or spring, whatever the case may be?
I think if I'm speaking safely for everybody that roots for the Canes, I think everybody would start with Carson Beck, right? With that, not being the case, and him not being able to throw. I think when you start on the O line, for me, you're right. I look at that and say it's the safest position on the offense, right? I think we've got known entities there, and I think everybody feels good about that position, right? I think the position really where I would want to hear some updates, and I think we have, is I think the receiver position, and the two names that keep that are kind of at the forefront of everybody's posts and conversation and the whole deal seem to be Josh Moore and Malachi Toney. I think by and large that's kind of the two names that are kind of really leading the headlines. I think obviously, not having been at practice, but everything I've seen online and what people are posting, one of the things that kind of has me excited based on everything I've seen is how natural and how fluid those guys look, in and out of routes, their hands catchers, and I think at the age where they're at, and obviously never having stepped foot on a college field, I think you have to like, what it is you've seen and heard from those guys so far, especially a guy like Josh Moore. Malachi Toney, to me, if you would have made me choose which one of those guys I would have expected to have heard, good things about, I think I probably would have gone with Malachi Toney just based on, just one of those kids who, obviously, won the Nat Moore Award, right? I mean, in Dade County, we know how big that is, right? And what that means in terms of, the area and how highly thought of you are if you win that award. A guy who was just a terror on the field last year for American Heritage, and so I would have expected to have heard, even at his young age, I would have definitely expected to have heard some from him. But I'm really, really pleasantly surprised the little that I've seen of Josh Moore. Contested catches, one-handed catches. How fluid he looks in and out of routes and everything like that. So, again, I think I don't know the names that you guys have heard, but really consistently throughout the first, 10, 11 practices now, those are kind of the two names that I've continued to hear, and the little that I've seen, it looks like, those guys are really going to contribute this year.
John, what's your take?
Well, I'm really excited about two units on defense. First of all, the D-line. I've heard a lot of good things about David Blay. Heard great things about Hayden Lowe, that he's making plays every practice. I've heard, good things about Ruben Bain. I've heard Ruben Bain and CC are really going to battle every day, which is great because, those two guys can sharpen each other, and both are future NFL guys. One is a future first rounder probably. So that's great that they can go head to head so often. Dante Simpson, a young guy that I'm hearing good things about as well. That name's popping up a lot. So I'm really excited about that unit, both D tackle and DN. Of course, bringing in our new coach. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name right now.
Corey Heatherman.
Damian Lewis.
Oh, excuse me, Damian Lewis.
Yeah. Bringing in Damian Lewis, who I thought was a great addition for the D tackles. You still got JT. And, all the young guys, too, that might pop off this year. Colin McConaughey. You got Booker Pickett. You got, like I mentioned already, Hayden Lowe. And all the veterans. You got Mesidor back. That's huge. That's a future NFL guy. So I feel like we're pretty loaded talent-wise and pretty deep. Justin Scott, another one. Ahmad Moten. Ahmad Moten's a proven guy. So we've got numbers and we got talent on that unit, which is great. I can't remember the last time I can honestly say that was probably 2017, 2018. when we had like RJ McIntosh, Chad Thomas, and all those guys. I would say we have even more now, assuming these guys, these younger guys, do continue to pan out. It seems like they are so far. It seems like the scouting was good on those guys. So I'm very excited about the D-line. Also very excited about the secondary. Xavier Lucas, you hear his name a lot. Let's see who else you hear. Zachariah Poyser's name a lot. The coaches speak very highly of him, that he's already a leader in that room. So with all the talent we added in that room, I mean, you would think that it's going to be significantly better. And it seems like it has. It seemed, I'm hearing good things about that unit, but those two guys in particular. So I'm excited about both those things. Little nervous about linebacker. I don't think we have any impact guys at that position really. But you add a veteran or two in the portal, I think they can do a little patchwork and be okay. Maybe a couple guys can take a step forward and, we'll be okay. Hopefully the linebackers don't hold them back this year, I think. But if you have elite pass rush and elite secondary, I think you can get by with mediocre linebacker play. Hopefully. But, that's kind of my take on that side of the ball.
Will, you're set on defense, and then John, you'll do the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Will, your take on the defense since you did the offense, and then John, and when Will's done, John, you take over on the offensive side.
I think there's a lot of piggybacking off of what my man John just said is, and I've talked on previous podcasts, the way I look at every position group is the three things I look for in every position group: talent, depth, experience. Right. And I think if we're looking around at all the position groups that we have on the team, I think, I think linebacker really is the only one that we're, again, not super talented at, not very deep at, and not super experienced at. Right. If you start on the D line, right, and you look at that defensive end position, I think you got to be excited at what you have there. Right. And a good mix of talent, depth, experience. All right. You have, all the young guys that they brought in last year's class. Right. To me, you look at, depth, or you got, just like John mentioned, right, you got Booker Pickett, Elias Rudolph, Cole McConaughey, deep at that position. When you look at D tackle, right, a lot of talent and depth. When you look at what they brought in with David Blay, the guys they brought in last year with Justin Scott, with Armando Blunt, hopefully Ahmad Moten continues to take another step forward, because that's going to be huge. That body type is not common at that position group at Miami currently, right? So you got to have a guy like that really, really, step up and be, that dominant run stuffer in the middle. But again, at the D line, got to like what you have coupled with that coaching, right? A guy like Jason Taylor, who and me and Will have had that conversation. In my opinion, I think Jason Taylor at this point in his coaching career is a way better recruiter / relationship builder than he is a coach. I think he's got to continue to show that progress and have these guys really develop, have that talent really start to take a step forward and have those guys impact the game, right? That's where I thought we were kind of lacking with a guy like Big Joe Salaveo, who, super nice guy, a guy who was difficult to not say good things about, right? I mean, just as nice a dude as you can find. But I thought that, him leaving and what you replace him with, I think you really hit a home run. You see what Damian Lewis did at University of Colorado last year, how that D-line and D-tackle specifically, really took a step forward, were disruptive in the backfield after being really, really bad the previous couple seasons. So you really got to like what you have there at D-line, because I think last year, I think if we're being honest, just as the whole defense did, that D-line definitely didn't live up to what the expectation was and what they really needed them to do, given how bad the DBs were and how mediocre I think overall the linebackers were. So again, at D-line, you really got to be excited. And the numbers, I think, at DB also, right? When you look at, again, what they brought in through the portal, talent, right? Poyser at safety, a kid who was a freshman All-American, Xavier Lucas, freshman All-American. You couple that with, hopefully Zaquan Patterson is, going to take that next step now, and just a lot of depth back there with the guys that you brought in, the recruiting class. I think the numbers bear that out. And I would not be surprised if come the spring portal window, I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of those guys, hit the portal, because there's a lot of numbers, but there's a lot of depth, lot of experience, or a lot of depth and a lot of talent, not so much experience, but depth and talent. And I think some of those guys are going to see the writing on the wall and realize, hey, I'm not going to get on the field this year, and probably hit the portal, which again, I don't think is a bad thing. But I think we look good at DB, D-line, linebacker. Again, piggyback off what John said. I think the portal is probably going to be in play for linebacker. I think based on what I've heard, more than anything, going to run a 4-2-5, and I don't know if you guys have heard anything different on that end. But again, with only playing 2 linebackers at one time, it may not be a huge emphasis at that position. But honestly, I feel like come spring portal time, I think you're going to have to go shopping for a linebacker with some experience. But again, I think the defense, given the influx of talent, given the changes at the coaching positions, I really think the arrow is pointing up on that defense, and they'll be significantly better come 25.
All right, good takes, Will. John, your take on the offense?
So I think we're all right at offense overall. Obviously, depends on how healthy Carson Beck will be and how he performs this year. A lot of it will fall on him, but he's kind of a high floor kind of guy. I don't suspect him to, crash the plane, if you will. I think I expect him to come in and run the offense effectively, run it like a pro, and run it like a professional game manager, which that's all I need him to do. I don't need him to be Cam Ward. Don't try to be Cam Ward. Just come in and run the offense and basically do what we were asking Tyler Van Dyke to do his last few games of his career. Just don't turn the ball over. We'll be fine. If Carson Beck can do that and maybe hit a few play action for throws here and there with our running game and our running backs, our pretty much NFL O-line, that's going to carry us through. I think we're going to grind out a lot of victories that way. The way the games go this year, I think it's going to look very similar to 2023, except we're going to win more games because we're not going to turn the ball over as much. I think it's going to be more low scoring, more physical, grind it out. Maybe not a ton of blowouts this year, but I think you're going to see some convincing 14-point victories where we won by like 2 touchdowns, but it's like, they had no chance. We were just dominating on the ground, that kind of game. I think we're going to have quite a few of those. Maybe we split against Florida and Notre Dame. I'm guessing, and we just kind of have a solid run through the ACC if we can maintain that running game. I mean, we were well on our way to doing that in 2023, but then we just started. It was interception city for a stretch of like 3 or 4 games. If not for that hiccup, we cruise into Charlotte for the championship game. I think what should have happened then will happen and can happen this year. As long as the offense just don't mess it up, you'll be fine.
Piggybacking a little bit, I don't want to ignore his question. Cesar Gonzalez asked about Bobby Washington. I haven't heard much about Bobby at all. I've heard that Bopo has stepped up a bit. I've heard Aldarius Hayes looks like literally like an NFL linebacker. I've heard good things about it, especially when it comes to practicing and stopping the run as well. I've heard Kellen Wiley's been doing very well, and I've heard also Ezekiel Marcelin has picked up the defense pretty well. Q, have you heard anything? I feel like you want to say something.
And I saw the question, and I figured we get to it at some point. If I remember correctly, Bobby Washington in the practices leading up to the bowl game, I want to say he tore up one of his knees, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. I think that's where that stands right now. I think he got hurt in bowl practice, so I think he's probably going to be out a pretty long while. Okay. As I said, it was very significant.
I've heard he's a little nicked up. I didn't hear anything about his knee specifically, but I just heard, he's a little banged up and he could be out for a little bit, which sucks because that's one of the guys I was looking forward to seeing his progression. 100%. He's got all the physical tools you can imagine. Like he's just got to get it mentally, and bringing in Coach Heatherman that I think brings in a simplified defense, I think that would have been perfect for him, but unfortunately that happened.
Yeah, a kid like him who I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's somewhere in that 230-pound range. He's in that 6'3" range and can fly. And can fly. And
missile.
Reckless abandon.
Yep,
like that dude he loves to play physical, loves to hit people. So To put that guy in a simple type of defense and just let him fly to the ball and just make plays. Seems like this defense is tailor-made for him once he's hopefully back and healthy. So
going back to the offense a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised if we score in the high 30s because I do believe you could only go up from the way our defense played last year, and I think the Heatherman defense will force a lot more turnovers, which will put Miami in a much shorter field than we were in last year. I mean, we were the top offense in the league, scoring the most amount of points, and we basically played from the 20s forward. I think this time around we'll get some turnovers because we have the experience in the defensive backfield. We have a lot of ball hawks as well that are long and fast as well and very physical. So I do think Miami will force more turnovers this year, which I think will put them closer into his own territory, which will add points. I don't think it'll be the offense we had this year. That was just an anomaly of an offense. But I do think the team they'll be surprised if it gets in the high 30s. And they're at least a top 15 top 10 around there.
And I think now you really have to like what you have in Shannon Dawson, where now there's proof of concept, right? Now we have, this is how you sell Carson Beck to come to Miami. You'd be like, listen, here's a system. Look at what we've done. All right. This is an offense that you're going to be able to score points in. All right. You're going to be surrounded by talent. You're going to be protected, with one of the best O-lines in the country. And going back to what John said earlier is, 23, if TBD was such a disaster in 23, and just call it what it is. And, not trying to be mean or anything, but it is what it is. When you look at those numbers from 23, the offense was better than what you would have been led to believe and what the results showed. But TBD just fell apart. It was seeing ghosts, and he's throwing into quadruple coverage and not checking down anything. I mean, just a disaster. But in terms of what the offense was, way better than what you would have been led to believe given what the record was. And now you fast forward, a year, you put Cam in that offense, given what he's surrounded by. And again, I mean, it's an easy sell to a guy like Carson Beck, right? You look at him and be like, listen, I'm not going to say Carson Beck is Cam Ward, but I don't think that there's Cam is head and shoulders necessarily above what Carson Beck can do. When you look at all the mock drafts from the year before, anyone you saw if Carson Beck wasn't the top pick in the draft, he was a top 3 pick. And there's a reason for that, right? I think you look at a guy who is, who has the size, has deceiving mobility, has an NFL arm, and a guy who, if you look at Georgia, the results speak for themselves, right? So again, I think to fast forward, it was a really easy sell for him, to come to Miami, be protected by a great O-line. I think the talent that he's going to be surrounded by at the skill position, I think is going to be better than what Georgia could have provided, which is crazy to think or even say. But I think it's the truth. Again, I think once he's back and healthy, I'm not saying, 44 or 45 points a game like they had, this past year, but I think it's reasonable to expect, somewhere in that, 36, 38, points a game range, given what that defense is expected to do. So I think it's going to be a way more balanced team. But again, I don't think that offense is going to be as far behind as this past year's offense as a lot of people, expected to be.
Big shout out to my buddy, Mr. B, George Bombardier. He loves to talk to me after school all the time about Mario Cristobal's play calling and game time situations. And if you want to take that question or a couple questions for Mr. Bombardier, he hears me all the time talking about it.
Mario doesn't call plays. Mario doesn't call plays. Just FYI.
I'll jump on this one. Aside, honestly, and this may be controversial, but aside from his not taking a knee that one time, I can't point to any game where a call he made, whether calling a timeout or not calling a timeout or doing this instead of doing that, cost us a game. I honestly can't think of one. Because you really, in those games that we lost, like Syracuse, for example, people point to, why didn't he call a timeout before that 4th down, or why didn't he go for that 4th down, whatever. The one 4th down I'm thinking of, for example, it was like 4th and 10. It was a low percentage play anyway. Say we go for it and we get it. Okay, defense still wants to go out and make a stop. We were screwed either way. So it's like, and really in a lot of those games, it's like the play on the field is what cost us. Mistakes is what cost us. It wasn't a call here, a call there that cost us, aside from the not taking a knee. And even in that game, 2 red zone interceptions by TVD, 3 total. Don Chaney
and defense not stepping up when they needed to at the end of that game.
Yeah,
right.
Come on.
Cam Kinchin's getting torched on what should have been an easy prevent.
100%.
Defense.
You should have been down there on the 5-yard line and not let anything get behind you.
Exactly.
So
exactly. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, and Don Chaney. That wasn't. We all know the entire. Everyone on planet Earth knows he was down. That was not a fumble. So 100%. So many things. Whatever curse that's going on in that stadium, it hit that night. Things aligned for it that night. But yeah, again, I can't point to any one play call that cost us a game.
No.
Honestly.
No. Yeah, I agree with you guys. The Syracuse game, I agree with you, John, regardless of the fact you still needed to stop. Whether you got the touchdown, I think it was a 4th and goal, but at the 10-yard line. And regardless of not, you needed to stop. At the end of the day, you needed to stop. And I think that's where a lot of people just failed to understand or didn't understand that part. I got all the time, should have gone for the 4th down. I'm like, well, you're not guaranteed a touchdown. I mean, you're really not. The Cam gets sacked, whatever. You still got to get a stop. And 4 points is a bit more manageable than, let's say, 7 if it would have been that situation. And then if Miami scores quickly, then Syracuse is going to be forced in a situation where they have to get a touchdown versus a field goal. So I understand that call. If it would have worked, and Miami gets that stop, and then when no one's talking about it. But yeah, aside from the knee, which he's gonna have to live with for the rest of his life, I really can't say Mark Cristobal cost us a game. A lot of it has been the execution from the players.
The defense. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, it was defense, plain and simple. The offense last year, even in the games that they weren't great, in the 3 losses that Miami had, Cam threw 8. He threw 8 touchdowns and no picks. Last year was all defense. Every bit of that was just defensive lapses and defensive mistakes and lack of adjustment and just lack of ability to ever impact the game on any level. They couldn't sack the quarterback when it counted. They couldn't, they couldn't create turnovers. They couldn't stop anybody. I mean, they were just inept. They were inept in that particular category especially against FBS teams. They feasted against, Ball State or whatever. But in the ACC, they couldn't stop anybody on defense. So,
no, absolutely, it was a major issue altogether. The defense really did keep us from basically going to the playoffs and competing for a national championship. John, I know you have to go. You have to run. I want to thank you so much for joining the show today. Is there anything coming up on your end that you'd like to plug or promote?
So I will actually be going on vacation. I'll be out of town for a couple of weeks, so I won't have my show until, let me look at the calendar really quick. So next Tuesday, the 8th, I will be gone, and the 15th. So on the 22nd, I'll be back to do my usual Tuesday night live stream. I'll be on Sunday with Flo as usual. And then, then I'll be gone for 2 weeks after that.
Nice. So you're missing the spring game.
I'm missing the spring game. I will be out of the country. But I'm sure the boys will hold it down. I just, I know you guys got it, just make sure nobody gets hurt and, we'll be all right.
Awesome. Right. Well, John, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your expertise on the Canes. All right. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks, sir. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Safe travels, man. Talk to you soon, bro.
All right,
man, don't forget to subscribe. Cafecito and Kane and the Miami Flow Network. Do not forget to hit that subscribe and like button. All right, guys. They have good content every week. Thanks again, John. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Night.
Yeah, bud.
Take it easy, bro.
All right, Will. Now it's you and me.
I'm with it, bro.
Now it's you and me. All right. So before we get into recruiting, George has a few more questions. So let's go. What if I see him in the elevator tomorrow? All right, Cam. Okay, a Cam touchdown was a better percentage play than a defense stopping Syracuse. Just saying. I get your points, but the bottom line though, it would have been tied. Okay, it would have been a tie game. You still need a stop. It's a stop. It's it.
And at that time, man, you're looking at 4th and 10, right?
Yeah.
And listen, I don't disagree in that Cam, going forward on 4th and 10, it was probably a safer bet than putting our defense in any situation where they needed a stop. I won't disagree with you. But again, man, to me, I'm looking at that and saying, 6-1, half dozen in the other, man. Like you can what if that one, all day. The fact of the matter is the defense just wasn't good enough, and these are the things that you have to consider. These kind of ridiculous going forward on 4th and 10 is the reason why the changes on defense had to happen.
Yeah. Because
there's no reason why they should have been in that position. There's no reason why they should have lost, to Syracuse. None whatsoever. And along with, the many missteps the defense had, during the 24 season is, that's just what it is.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Again, I do think Miami would have been in the Final Four and possibly would have won a national championship if they would have had the defense from the year prior with Cam Kitchens, James Williams, Corey Flagg, and so on. I think that would have been a better chance, only because on offense, who are you really going to stop? All Miami's defense had to do is be slightly above average. But Miami's offense, who are you to stop? If you decide to stop the running game, you're gonna get torched by Cam. If you play a 2 deep, you got to deal with Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher. And then if you stop them, then you got to deal with Elijah Arroyo down the middle of the field or lined up, outside in the boundary as well, against a corner versus a tight end that runs like a wide receiver. So, I mean, either way, you're in big trouble. So I do think that Miami if Miami would have had a much better defense, Miami ends up in the Final Four and possibly wins a national championship. I just don't see anybody being that team if it's clicking all speakers.
Yeah, I think with a halfway competent defense, I think they would have been a scary team. When you look at the teams in the playoffs, I mean, again, they were in there for a reason. But again, when you're looking at, like, for example, like the Final Four, none of the teams in the Final Four had an offense as good as Miami, had a quarterback as good as Cam Ward. The difference is that those defenses, there was 4 stellar defenses.
Yep.
The offenses weren't great, but there were 4 stellar defenses, and that's why they were stellar defenses, and they had competent play at quarterback, and it was enough for them to make it where they made it.
No, absolutely. And one of the things about Mark Cristobal, now we're jumping into the recruiting aspect of things, is that he always tries to make his team better. They pace it. They had a heavy emphasis on the defensive backfield with this recruiting cycle. They had a heavy emphasis in the transfer portal, this transfer portal cycle, right, as well. They're doing it again, as well in defense for 2026 as they landed Jalen Seatbelt Waters as well. So Miami's been doing it as well as far as recruiting goes. They missed it on Jabari Flowers. Okay, I do think that was a couple things. I do think that personnel played a role. I think that the fact that he reclassified and so many defensive backs were already on the roster, both as true freshmen and also to the transfer portal. I'm not gonna lie to you. From what I heard, and I know I might have played a little bit of an appeal to Jabari as well. That's not coming from me. That came from another source as well. Not my source, a source in the podcasting world. I want to be clear about that, right? As well. But I do like what we have so far. We have Camden Portis, of course, the legacy son of Clinton Portis, right, as a defensive back. Jalen Waters, I mentioned earlier. Javion Mallory is going to be a stud. He has he reminds me a bit of Edgerrin James. Okay, that speed and power type of deal. Has a bit of EJ in him as well. And of course, the offensive line with Ben Cogden, Joel Irvin, JJ Sparks, and we're in the running for Jackson Cantwell, Cannon Pitt as well, Kenny Pepe, and Ryan Moret as well. So things are looking pretty up. Miami currently has the 14th best recruiting class in the 2026 recruiting cycle, according to 247 Sports. So I want to ask you a couple questions there, Will. Which of the true freshmen are you looking forward to seeing if they decide to sign on the dotted line? And do you think we could land all those offensive linemen? And if we can't, which ones do you think are likely to be Canes? Starting first with the few I mentioned first before we get into the line.
Man, with the guys committed now, and I'm sitting here kind of running through the class right now. If you're looking at, to me, you always kind of have to start with the quarterback, right? I really like the trajectory of Darion Coleman. I think you have to be really excited, and I know he's probably a couple years away from really factoring in anything, but again, he is the quarterback of the class. I think you have to really like everything that's coming out now, with him, and it seems like he's really blowing up. He's kind of really starting to be noticed, on a national level. I think you really have to like what you have there. You know, a guy like Jalen Waters, who, you know, by all accounts, I think a lot of people are calling him the best corner in the state, which is big in a state that produces the amount of skill position talent that Florida does, right? A guy who you were able to flip from Florida. He was committed to Florida State before, so hopefully, you know, that's the end of his, you know, decommitment pattern and you know, little stretch that he was on. But, you know, again, across the board from the guys that I'm going to say with the guys that are committed right now, you know, again, I'm really excited about Darion Coleman, really excited about Javion Mallory, you know, a kid who is probably not as highly acclaimed as maybe a kid like Derek Cooper, who, you know, they're you know, hot on his tail, and you know, maybe some of these other running backs. But, you know, again, a guy who figures prominently, you know, at a program like West Boca. You know, a guy who, you know, won a state title, a guy who was the kind of bell cow of that offense. And you just, I think overall, you just have to like, you know, how many irons they have in the fire for so many people, right? When you're looking at, you know, the number one recruit in the country with a kid like Jackson Cantwell, you know, they're going after, you know, big time offensive linemen. You know, the two kids from IMG, Brett Colje and Kenya Pepe. You know, they're after a lot of big time dudes. Another one who's committed, Jordan Campbell, you know, a big time linebacker who everybody's after. You know, and so, you know, this has the makings of a class that, you know, I think is going to be, you know, it well inside that top 10. I think you have to like, you know, the excitement around the program right now. I think a lot of guys, you know, coming and one of those things that a lot of people, you know, mention is a lot of guys coming to see the program unofficially. Right. And what does unofficially mean is on their own dime, you know, and you really have to like when you're seeing, you know, a lot of these kids making second, third, fourth visits to the program on their own dime. You know, that's usually where, you know, the commitments come from. You know, it's rare that you get guys visit that often and don't commit. Does it happen? Yeah. But, you know, when you're seeing those guys on campus that often in an unofficial capacity, I think you really, really have to like, and as they say, right, follow the visits. And I think when you start following the visits and the guys that are showing up unofficially, I really think that you have to like, if you're forecasting, you know, the class out, you really have to like what you're seeing in terms of possibilities for who could make up this class.
Yeah, I think we have an opportunity here to have another sensational offensive line class like we had with the CC Manoa class and the Samson Okunola class as well. I mean. It just shows how much respect Alex Mirabal has gotten across the country as a great offensive line coach. When a guy like Jackson Cantwell, who was expected to be in Missouri, you know, shoo-in to go to Missouri, is seriously considering the Miami Hurricanes. And this will be a great haul because he's not just the best offensive lineman in the country. He's the number one recruit in the country altogether. So I do think that landing Jackson Cantwell will be absolutely amazing. I do think, though, landing Ryan Moret will be great too, only because the fact he's not only offensive lineman, he's also a state championship wrestler, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that you have a guy that's not only good at offensive line, but knows how to use his hands very well, because wrestlers are very skilled at using their hands. The one guy I really hope that they really do land as well is Cannon Pickett. Cannon Pickett is a Kane legacy. He's the brother of Booker Pickett Jr. He's also a young man that grew up a Miami fan. So I think it's Miami's guy to lose if Miami doesn't drop the ball with him. I don't think they will, especially since everyone knows that all the guys I've mentioned, that you're not only getting your offensive line coach that is coaching you up, you're also getting the head coach paying very close attention to you because he's also an offensive line guy. Cannon Pickett, in some circles, it says a 3-star, but he's actually a strong 4-star. If you look at the huddle video and you watch him, Cannon Pickett is a very well put together, polished offensive lineman. You could put that young man as a left tackle if you want to. You could put him also as an interior guard as well. He could play in a position. I also think he could possibly even play center as well if you need him to as well. He's a guy that won't be fooled by stunts, right? He's a guy that has taken on people's bull rushes, 4 or 5-star guys, and made them look really bad. He's a guy that could block an open space so you can use him on screens as well. There's really no weakness to his game, all right, as far as being an offensive lineman go. Plus, being a Kane legacy, those are the kind of guys you want because those are the guys that are bought into your program, all right, as well. So I'm really hoping that Miami could close the deal and land him and he not go to another school as well. I will be doing an episode on him sometime this weekend as well. So look out for that one as well.
I one of the things that I'm seeing, with the class, and obviously huge emphasis on the O-line because you have to, right? When you're looking at, your starting five this upcoming season, you can reasonably expect at the very least 4 of those guys to not be around in 26.
Yeah.
Obviously you have Brockermeyer, at center, who's going to be out of eligibility. But then you're also looking at, more than likely, Francis Manoa is going to enter the draft. You're looking at a guy, like Inez Cooper, more than likely, is probably going to be gone. Markel Bell, if everything plays out the way that the team wanted to, there's I would say a better than 50% chance he'll enter the draft. Yeah. So you're going to be replacing your frontline guys. You're going to be replacing a lot of talent. So you can see why the emphasis exists, to land a bunch of guys on the offensive line. The guys that they've landed obviously aren't the marquee guys. If you're looking at, the stars and everything like that, but I think guys who are, a kid like Joel Irvin, I mean, he weighed in at Florida State. He was measured at Florida State, I think the week before he came to Miami. And a kid who's 6'7", 340 pounds, has like 11.5-inch hands, super long arms. So, a guy with the measurables, right? Those things that you can't teach. You've got to love that commitment. The kid that just landed, JJ Sparks, who committed to Miami over Florida State, another kid who's, again, at the 6'6", like 300 pounds, so on and so forth. So, again, the guys that you have coming back, Ben Cogden, who's, a huge kid, so a lot of traits with these guys, a lot of stuff that you can't teach when it comes to size. And now you kind of build the foundation of that O-line haul with those 3 guys. And who I think when you're looking at everything, where they play, the type of measurables they have in the whole deal, I would imagine that there's an expectation those guys probably are going to finish as 4 stars. Right, a kid like Joel Irvin, who wasn't on the camp circuit really in the whole deal, probably a little bit under scouted and under recruited. I could very easily see him, with those traits and those measurables, he's going to be a 4-star. I would bet decent money on that. And so again, the three guys that you have committed, very traitsy guys with stuff that you can't teach, and now you start to aim a little bit higher. Hopefully with the next 3-4 guys that you have committed. Those are going to be, your national guys, right? Your Jackson Cantwells, your Cannon Pickett's, those kind of guys who, also, if I'm not mistaken, Will Fung actually put in a prediction, a crystal ball for Miami to land him. He at first he had put it in for Clemson because he camped over there, and then like the day or 2 days after that, he actually changed it. So, again, him predicting that is big. That guy's rarely wrong. So you got to like where you stand with him, based on the type of player he is and his pedigree, and obviously him being a legacy at Miami. You really got to be excited for the possibility of landing him in this class.
No, I totally agree with you, and I do think that I do think that Miami again is in really good shape to land up to 5 to 6 offensive linemen. So I think that's a good thing. And again, you're rebuilding the trenches, and you're going to have to. Right, as well, you're rebuilding the trenches.
Yeah, I don't know if you have a choice. I don't think you have a choice. You don't.
Go out and land a big. The good thing is, though, Will, is that we do have a center. Eshela Faituli, I think, is the future center of this team. Yep. So you will have the center position solidified, pretty much so. And I do like Max Buchanan as well. I think he's going to be a very good football player, and J.D. Wilkerson. But these guys that are coming in, they're going to push. They're going to push those guys as well, because they're going to be super talented. If you land Jackson Cantwell, it's gonna be phenomenal. Again, how often are offensive linemen top recruited in the country? Very rarely. I think the offensive lineman is the most underappreciated position in all of football, even though it's one of the most important positions. Look at the Hall of Fame in the NFL. I had Richmond Webb on twice, and he can't get in. And
that's
he's
crazy to me.
Like 9 Pro Bowls.
That's insane to me that Richmond Webb is not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, 9 Pro Bowls, 7 All-Pro, first team.
That is a travesty that guy is not in the Hall of Fame. That's ridiculous.
It absolutely is. I mean, absolutely is. And Keith Sims hasn't even been considered, as well. And he played the inside. So, I mean, against probably for the most prolific passer in the history of the NFL. I mean, so that's just that again. But the fact that he's number one, that says a lot about him. All right, jumping to spring game. I know we talked about this before, but for those who didn't hear it, What do you think about the possibility of Miami? I don't think it's ever going to happen. I don't think Mario would ever do it. But what do you think of the possibility of Miami playing a team next year, if it does happen, like an Ohio State or an Iowa or a Colorado? Oh, are you in favor of that, or do you think that it should be just traditional, just a regular scrimmage, just for the fans?
I think I would be 100% in favor of it. I thought when Deion Sanders, kind of, talked about that and as it, being a possibility, and Fran Brown kind of, raising his hand and going, hey, well, we'll take a flight out there, we'll play, I thought that was awesome, to be totally honest with you. I think overall, I think that's something that players would be cool with. I think for several reasons, right? I mean, again, a program like Syracuse, right, being able to travel to, to Boulder, Colorado, that kind of thing. I mean, how cool would that be for the players and the whole deal? Obviously, you have to deal with, with the NCAA, and those guys are, the buzzkills, and they're probably never going to allow that. They're never going to allow it to happen. I mean, if we're being honest, I mean, they already were like, no, I think if hypothetically, right, I think if that was allowed to happen, now moving forward, I think it's just like anything, right? TV runs everything, right? So, if the SEC, through ESPN and, like the Big Ten, through Fox, I think if they start to garner some attention, and the executives at those companies kind of step forward and be like, hey, how can we make this happen? I feel like, that's something that in the very near future, I would think that it could happen. Now, the way I would think it would happen, when you start looking at, what travel would be like when you're looking at, 100, plus players and support staff and equipment and the whole deal. I don't know that you get those Syracuse, Colorado, type of matchups. What I feel like, would be more feasible is something like, for example, if you're Miami, Miami FAU, for example, right? Something where, you're taking, an hour ride up on 95, and it's not a big, long, drawn out thing. I think something like that would be more feasible than loading up and traveling across the country if you're Syracuse going to Colorado. But I think in the very near future, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that ends up happening. And I think there could be a demand for it, but I think it would be more regional.
Okay.
I don't think you would get these teams. I don't think teams would go interconference. You wouldn't see like Miami versus North Carolina, or Miami versus Georgia Tech. I don't think that would ever happen. But I think you could get those kind of those intersectional type matchups that are kind of natural rivalries geographically. So I could see in the near future, if that did get approved, I could see, like I said, a Miami FAU, Miami UCF, Miami USF, maybe kind of something along those lines. But I don't think you would ever see Florida State, Miami, Florida State in a spring type of scenario. I can't see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it will happen at all. I would like to see like a Miami versus Iowa, a Miami versus Ohio State. That would be fun. A Miami versus Colorado. That would be fun as well, especially since you have, Deion Sanders as the head coach, and Miami, is once again rebuilding its brand. I think it's a good idea. And the reason why I think it's a good idea is because you're hearing a lot of like schools not having spring games. And I think for fans, that kind of sucks, because the fan base looks forward to seeing at least something. They look forward to something for the upcoming season. I know Florida State decided that we're mad, we're taking our ball home, and we're not gonna have a spring game at all. Little crybabies, in general. So that's one factor. But I would hate to see spring games die if this is a way to keep them going. And the NFL does it. They do joint practice before preseason games. I don't see why they can't do that. You play your starters for one set, and then you have the true freshmen come in and give it a go against the other true freshmen on the side of the ball. And I do think I'll let you go, but I also do think, and I was talking with Corey, Chuba Batman, and he's right. After a while, the DB knows every trick in the book from the wide receiver, so it's kind of a good way to kind of take on somebody else, so you have a different body type, a different way of doing things, different style, and so on. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, no, and I was going to tell you, kind of piggyback off that. A lot
Okay.
of schools, and I know, I think I saw like Nebraska, Illinois, at the Florida State, obviously, they're not doing it. This, and somebody called it, somebody labeled it, and I thought, I was like, man, that's kind of spot on. It's like spring paranoia.
Yeah.
With people canceling spring games, the whole deal. Listen, man, if you have in today's landscape of college football, you have good players. Staffs know who your good players are. I'm not like, if I'm a Miami fan and I listen and I hear Mario come to the podium and go, "Oh, we're going to cancel spring because we don't want our film getting out on our young guys. People poach them." Listen, stop being scared about stuff you can't control. We already know what the transfer portal is. We already know how ridiculous, and we have an idea. Obviously, again, I'm not in that world. I don't have connections necessarily to programs to hear verbatim what it is going on. But I mean, you listen to guys like Kirby Smart talk, all these other coaches, and what's going on in college football. I mean, it's borderline ridiculous. Like, literally, it's the wild, wild west, right? There's no tampering, is very normal. So I say all that to say you're not going to keep your players a secret, right? If you're recruiting the way you want to recruit, people know who the talent on your team is. It's that simple, right? Now, if you don't want to televise it like a full on, it's airing on ESPN or whatever the case may be, that's fine. But to not have it, I just feel like that's a level of paranoia and just a level of fear that you're operating under. That, come on, man. Like, if you have talent, those guys are going to be targets. It's the new age of college football. Accept it and expect it. It's what's going to happen. But to cancel spring games because of it, honestly, I just, that's soft, to be totally honest with you. I think that's soft. It's paranoid. Listen, man, don't let that type of thing alter your spring plans and alter how it is you're running your team. If you got talent, they're going to be targets. It's that simple. That is not, the type of support stats that these teams have now. Like, people know your roster. People know Miami's roster, Florida's roster, Florida State's roster, because they get paid to know that stuff. All right. Those guys were all recruiting. All those guys held offers from the same schools. Or all the guys that landed at Miami had Florida State offers, and vice versa. Florida State had Miami and Florida offers. Like, so, to think that you can somehow hide those guys and keep them from being approached and the whole deal. Honestly, man, I think, to me, it's a waste of time. I think it's childish. I think, to me, continue doing what you're doing, continue to recruit, continue to build as talented a roster as you can, so you can absorb some of these, inevitable defections that are going to happen. But at the end of the day, man, to be canceling, spring games because, somebody's going to see what we have at whatever position. Come on, man. Like, stop. Just do your thing. Maybe not televise it, but come on. That's a little bit too much paranoia, in my opinion.
And it's stupid because there's huddle videos and clip cuts, or quick cuts, whatever they're called, on everybody. Everybody has a huddle video for the most part. Everybody gets recruited. People know the talent you have on your team, and they know who's a good player or if they're being underutilized. They all know it. And tampering's going to happen, unfortunately. It is what it is. It's a new age of college football. It's very hard to prove, but for some schools. But the bottom line is, we all know what happens, because athletes even reveal it on social media that, I spoke to the school in that school. So it's absolutely ridiculous. I do think that, again, it's a disservice to your fan base, your season ticket holders, if you don't have it, because, again, it's a great way to get excited for the season. A school like Florida State that finished 2-10 should have a spring game, because the fan base needs something to get excited about. The fact that Mike Norvell is that paranoid that he's not only is not having a spring game, he's locked out the media altogether. In general, that they can't even watch practice, that even give notes on their podcast. What's the fan base supposed to expect out of their team? They know nothing. They know nothing because you're 2-10 and Norvell's keeping his practice a secret. So
yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, again, to me, and listen, I'll take it a step further. I'm going to, for me personally, I'd push back on, the fan aspect of it. only because look, I don't know what's going on in practice, right? The spring game at the end of the day it's a very, very, scripted, type of, again, it's a glorified practice. For
Yeah, it
being
is.
honest, it's a spring game. It's a glorified practice, right? It's scripted, right? It's not it's not your normal scoring system, right? It's like they did last year. It'll be situational, and it'll be, they'll do goal line work, and then they'll do 2-minute work, and that kind of thing. So it does, again, it's a glorified practice. Listen, to me, what the coaching staffs owe the fan bases is doing their job. What the coaching staffs owe the fan bases is recruit, develop, put a good product on the field, and win games. If you're doing that, nobody gives a damn about the spring game, within reason, right? There's going to be people who care about it because, again, you're diehards and the whole deal. But at the end of the day, what it is that you owe the fan base, to me, that are those four things, right? Recruit, develop, right? Put a good product on the field, win games. Everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And if you're a team, who's has the expectations Miami does, and you're winning, 10 games, 11 games, 12 games, I promise you, brother, nobody is going to care about the spring game and whatever you're calling the spring game, the glorified practice that will go down as the practice number 15 slash spring game. It's going to come and go. Nobody's going to care, to be totally honest with you. So if they're holding up their end of the bargain, call that game whatever you want to call it, and keep it moving. Because, again, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
the only thing I'm gonna push back on, the only thing I'm gonna push back on a little bit is that I was at Cobb Stadium last year, and it was nice to see Cam Ward, run the offense, and even though it was scripted, it was very well executed, right, as well, and seeing the young guys, get some run. That's pretty much why I enjoy watching it. And again, like, I do think it's nice for the fans to see, what, even though it's very scripted, Miami ran a totally different system. It felt like, the entire season, and even on defense. But I just thought it was nice to see. And I got to see some of the younger guys, like Marquise Lightfoot had like a strip sack in the game. And so I see the future. Is what I'm trying to say when it comes to that young man. So that's the only reason why. I get your perspective. Yeah. If you win, it doesn't matter. But I think it's traditional, number one. And I'm a big guy when it comes to tradition. And number two, I just think it's a good way to kind of let your fan base know, look, this is how our young guys look, and just get excited. Yeah. That's the only thing. No, but again, I still think Florida State's being petty.
Yeah. And again, I don't push back on that sentiment without a doubt. But again, to me, right, for me, you do it at Cobb, invite, your season ticket holders, family, whatever the case may be, put on a little something, call it the spring game, call it practice number 15, get in and out, get your work in, get everybody out of there healthy. That's it. And you've given the fan base that, we have the spring game. Awesome. Yeah. So again, I definitely don't push back on anything you're saying. But in the end, like, there's only so much they're going to show. There's only so much that they're going to give you, for recording purposes, and for, because, again, everybody's paranoid, right? Because they don't want, people seeing, what the new quarterback looks like, under real life, in a real life scenario, real life situation, so on and so forth. You don't want to get anybody hurt and that kind of thing. So, again, man, like I said, it's the spring game. It's a glorified, practice, that you're calling a spring game. It's practice number 15. Again, at the end of the day, man, just listen, continue to develop those guys, hopefully win games. And next year you call practice 15, whatever you want to call it, as long as you're winning games. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Well, cute. I mean, thanks for joining. Really appreciate you coming on again. It's always a good time.
Always.
All right, it was a good time. Sir, where can we find you, and when is your next episode dropping?
I've put out a couple of small things here recently. I did a little ACC talk over Bill Belichick over at UNC, and kind of what that means for the conference and everything like that. Recruiting and the transfer portal and that kind of thing. And I put that out a few days ago. But you can find me at I Hate Football Podcast on YouTube, on Spotify. Working to kind of get that rolling on Spotify. But Everything will be, released on YouTube. I'll get with you here, coming up in the next week or so. We'll put something together. Do kind of like a end of spring type of talk with with the Canes. And yeah, man, just working on a few things, trying to get some people lined up, to get on the show, and like I said, man, trying to get this thing kind of rolling in the right direction. So if you guys like what you heard here, go ahead and find me on YouTube at I Hate Football Podcast. Like and subscribe there, and that'll help me out. And yeah, man, we'll keep putting stuff out, every week or so. We'll I'll be out there, just connecting and trying to get this thing rolling, man.
Thank you so much, Will. That was awesome. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Q's channel. Follow him also on Spotify. A few announcements on my end. Tomorrow, I will once again be live with Elio Tarago, the CEO of 305 Fights. He has an upcoming event at the Manuel Art Time Theater over in La Pequeña Habana as well. So I'll be bringing him on, and I'll be covering the event as well. Saturday night, doors open at 6 p.m. over at Little Havana. You can find tickets and so on 305 Fights TV. I believe it's .tv.com, something along those lines. You Google the website, you'll find it. All right, as well, so I'll be on as well. Next week, it's going to be pretty much 305 Live from Monday through Friday, as I will be leading it up to the spring game as well. I've had some confirmations on Friday. As of right now, Chalupa Batman and Benny Boondocks will be appearing on the show, so the You Heard Boys will be appearing on Friday. On Thursday, from the Canes Wear podcast, Mondo and Uncle Cliff. And on Wednesday, Flo from the Miami Flow Network will be appearing on as well. And I haven't decided yet whether it's be Monday or Tuesday, but I'm planning to have a fan day where you, the audience, could jump on and we'll talk a little bit about Canes football and so on. And Q, if you like a spot, let me know. All right.
Well, I was literally just looking at my calendar. What'd you say you have going on Wednesday?
Wednesday got Flo.
Man, if you got some space on there, man, I could jump on. I could jump on Wednesday night.
You're on, man. You're on.
Let's make it happen, bro. Let's
You're on, man.
Look at the calendar, man. I'm caught up Monday and Tuesday, but I'm definitely off Wednesday. And yeah, man, I'm free. I'll jump on, man. Let's make it happen.
You're on, sir. So I'll be sending you a link as well as Flo. So you'll be on with Flo. Will, thank you so much for joining, man. Always appreciate having you on. Again, you're a lifelong friend. I really appreciate you and your family. God bless you. And ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. It's totally free. All right. If you subscribe, I am able to continue to give you as much product, as much content as I possibly can. Well, yeah, I think I have one more thing to say.
One more thing also, yeah. And like I was talking about on YouTube, I Hate Football Podcast, Instagram, I Hate Football Podcast, Twitter /X, I Hate Football Podcast. Also, you can find me on all those platforms also.
Awesome. Me as well. All right, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful night. I'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.